You'll need to clear your office by 6 o'clock. Emily stared at the letter in silence. For a long moment, she couldn't move. 10 years. 10 years of helping children discover the magic of books. 10 years of organizing story nights, reading clubs, and quiet afternoons where lonely kids found a place to belong. And now, everything was over because of one signature. Outside the large windows of the community library, rain poured onto the empty streets of the small town. People hurried past with umbrellas, completely unaware that someone inside was watching an entire chapter of her life come to an end. Emily slowly removed her name badge and placed it on the desk. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't remind anyone how many lives she had touched. Sometimes you realize that when people have already made their decision, no amount of words will change it. She packed a small cardboard box. A framed photograph from the Children's Reading Club, a coffee mug decorated with little owls, an old notebook filled with book recommendations, and a wooden bookmark carved by an 8-year-old girl years ago. It read, "Thank you for teaching me that books can feel like home." For the first time that day, Emily felt tears filling her eyes. But she refused to cry. She had no idea that losing her job would become the beginning of something far greater than she could ever imagine. An hour later, she pulled into the driveway of the house she shared with her husband. A suitcase stood by the front door. At first, she thought someone had left it by mistake. Then she noticed another one, and another. David was waiting inside. He looked exhausted. Not angry, not sad, just distant. "We need to talk." Emily carefully set her box on the floor. "Okay. I'm leaving." She forced a small smile. "For another business trip?" He slowly shook his head. "No. For good." Silence filled the room. "I've met someone else." Emily looked toward the bookshelves they had built together years earlier. Every shelf, every nail, every weekend they spent laughing over crooked pieces of wood suddenly felt like someone else's memory. "The house stays with me," David continued. "The paperwork was changed 2 years ago. You'll need to find somewhere else to live." His voice sounded calm, almost casual, as if he were discussing the weather. Emily smiled, not because she was happy, but because sometimes smiling is the only thing keeping a broken heart from falling apart. 40 minutes later, everything she owned fit inside one suitcase. A few sweaters, her laptop, a worn-out blanket, and a small box filled with bookmarks made by children who had once believed she changed their lives. Without looking back, she walked away. If you've ever had life change in a single day, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even when one chapter ends, another is quietly waiting to begin. And if you believe kindness always finds its way back, leave a like. It helps these stories reach more people. There was only one place left for Emily to go: her grandfather's old house. A forgotten place surrounded by pine trees on the edge of a quiet American town. The house had been empty for nearly 10 years. During the drive, she stared through the rain-covered window and asked herself the same question over and over again. How can someone lose everything in one day? A career, a marriage, a home? She never found an answer. The old house greeted her with the smell of cedar wood and dust. An antique clock still ticked softly in the hallway, as if time had refused to leave. Emily opened every window, letting fresh air push away years of silence. While cleaning, she noticed a small door she had never entered as a child. Behind it was her grandfather's private library. Hundreds of books covered the walls from floor to ceiling. Without thinking, she reached for the first novel she saw. Something slipped from between the pages. A yellowed envelope landed gently on the wooden floor. There was no stamp, no address, only one sentence written in careful handwriting. For the person who one day loses faith in people. Emily held her breath. She didn't know it yet, but the letter in her hands would soon lead a frightened little boy to her doorstep, bring together a family that had been broken for years, and transform an abandoned library into a place where hundreds of children would discover hope. And this was only the beginning. Emily didn't open the envelope right away. The paper was so old it felt like it might crumble in her hands. She carefully unfolded the letter. The handwriting was instantly familiar. It belonged to her grandfather. If you're reading this, life has probably tested you once again. Don't make the mistake of believing you've lost everything. A person isn't poor because they lose a job, a house, or money. They're only truly poor when they stop believing they can still make a difference in someone else's life. Inside this library, there's a blue novel that hasn't been opened in decades. Find it. It contains a small secret. One day, that secret may save more than just you. For the first time in days, Emily smiled. Her grandfather had always loved mysteries. She pulled an old wooden ladder toward the tallest bookshelf and slowly climbed upward. Her fingers brushed across dusty spines until they stopped on a thick blue novel. The moment she pulled it free, something metallic hit the floor. A small, rusty key. Attached to it was a faded paper tag. Locker number 17. Nothing else. The next morning, Emily walked into the town's public library. It looked almost exactly as she remembered. Wooden floors, tall windows, the comforting smell of old books. Behind the front desk sat an elderly librarian with silver hair. The woman's eyes immediately fixed on the key. She slowly stood up. "Where did you get that?" "It belonged to my grandfather." The librarian became completely silent. Finally, she whispered, "I've been waiting 20 years for someone to bring it back." She led Emily downstairs into a forgotten archive room. Metal lockers lined the walls. Dust covered almost everything, except one small door, number 17. Emily inserted the key. The lock clicked open effortlessly. Inside were only 3 objects: a worn leather journal, an old film camera, and a large envelope. Written across it were 6 words: "For the one who refuses to walk away." Emily opened it carefully. Dozens of photographs spilled onto the table. Children, smiling, reading, drawing pictures, playing board games. Every photo had a handwritten note on the back. Loves dinosaurs. Afraid of thunderstorms. Dreams of becoming a firefighter. Needs someone to believe in him. Emily's eyes filled with tears. The page wasn't a photograph. It was a letter. These children came here every afternoon because they had nowhere else to go. Some were lonely, some were hungry, some simply needed one adult who would listen. I always believed that libraries don't just save stories. Sometimes they save people. If you're reading this, please don't let this place disappear. Signed, William Carter. Her grandfather. Emily spent the rest of the day cleaning the abandoned reading room. She dusted shelves, opened windows, stacked forgotten books. The empty building slowly began to feel alive again. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, she heard a faint sound. The front door creaked open. When she stepped into the hallway, no one was there. But something caught her attention. A small backpack, completely soaked from the rain. Next to it stood a pair of muddy sneakers. Emily looked outside. Near an old oak tree stood a skinny little boy, maybe 9 years old. His oversized hoodie hung loosely over his shoulders. He looked ready to run. "Hi," Emily said gently. The boy didn't answer. "Is this your backpack?" After a long pause, he nodded. "You can come inside. It's warm." He took one step backward, then quietly whispered, "I didn't steal anything." Emily felt her heart sink. No child should feel the need to say those words first. "I never thought you did." He stared at her for several seconds, trying to decide whether adults could still be trusted. Finally, he walked through the door. His clothes were dripping wet. His hands were shaking from the cold. Emily placed a mug of hot chocolate in front of him. The boy looked at it as if he couldn't believe it was really meant for him. "What's your name?" "Noah." "And do your parents know where you are?" The little boy lowered his eyes. He didn't answer. But somehow, his silence told Emily everything she needed to know. Before the story continues, if you're enjoying this journey, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week, we share heartwarming stories about second chances, family, and unexpected miracles. And if you believe one act of kindness can change a life forever, leave a like and tell us in the comments, what's the one place that has always felt like home to you? Because Noah's story is only beginning. Emily placed a slice of warm apple pie on the table. Noah didn't touch it. He simply stared at it. Then, almost in a whisper, he asked, "Are you going to make me leave after dinner?" Emily froze. She had worked with children for years. She had heard heartbreaking stories. But she had never heard a 9-year-old ask that question as if it were completely normal. "No," she answered softly. "You can stay here tonight." The boy looked into her eyes for several long seconds. Only then did he pick up his fork. He ate quickly, too quickly, as if someone might take the food away at any moment. Emily quietly poured him another cup of hot chocolate. Neither of them spoke. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Rain continued tapping against the windows long after sunset. Emily spread a blanket across the old couch. "You can sleep here." Noah looked around the room. "It's okay if I don't." "Why?" "I don't want to get anything dirty." Emily smiled. "It's just a couch." For the first time that evening, Noah smiled back. It lasted only a second, but it changed everything. The next morning, Emily woke up to the smell of pancakes. She walked into the kitchen and stopped. Noah stood on a chair, carefully flipping pancakes that were slightly burned around the edges. "I wanted to say thank you." Emily laughed. "They look perfect." He looked relieved. For the first time, he looked like a child, instead of someone carrying the weight of the world. An hour later, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. A tall man stepped out. He looked to be in his early 40s. Expensive coat, tired eyes, the kind of face that hadn't truly smiled in years. Beside him was a local police officer. Emily walked onto the porch. "Can I help you?" The man pulled a photograph from his pocket. Emily looked down. It was Noah, a little younger, wearing a school uniform, standing beside a woman with a bright smile. The man's voice shook slightly. "That's my son." Emily looked toward the kitchen window. Noah was still washing dishes. He disappeared 3 years ago. The man swallowed hard. Everyone believed he died in a warehouse fire. But I never stopped looking. Not for one single day. Emily felt something tighten inside her chest. At that exact moment, the front door slowly opened. Noah stepped outside. He looked toward the stranger. The plate slipped from his hands. It shattered on the porch. His face turned completely pale. "No." He took one step backward, then another, until he was standing behind Emily. His small fingers gripped the sleeve of her sweater. The man stepped forward. His eyes filled with tears. "Noah." The little boy squeezed his eyes shut. "Please don't make me go." Silence fell over the yard. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Emily looked down at Noah. His entire body was shaking. And suddenly she realized something that made her heart sink. This wasn't the fear of a child meeting a stranger. It was the fear of a child seeing someone he believed could hurt him. An hour later, everyone sat around the old dining table. The police officer quietly took notes. The man never looked away from Noah. Finally, he spoke. "I've been searching for you for 3 years." Noah nodded. "I know." Everyone looked at him. "You knew?" "I saw the missing posters." "Then why didn't you come home?" Noah stared at the floor. For a long time, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Because Aunt Rachel told me you hated me." The man stopped breathing for a second. "What?" "She said Mom died because of me. She said you wished I had disappeared too. She said if I ever came back, you'd send me away." Emily slowly closed her eyes. No child should ever have to carry words like those. The man's hands trembled. He whispered, "Rachel." The police officer looked up. "Your sister?" He nodded. "After the fire, she took Noah in to help while I was recovering. A few days later,
She told everyone he had run away. We searched everywhere. I hired private investigators. I spent every dollar I had. I never stopped looking. Emily looked at Noah. For 3 years, this little boy had believed the one person who loved him most had abandoned him. Before we uncover the truth, take a second to subscribe if you're enjoying this story. Every like and every subscription helps these stories reach people who need a reminder that hope can appear when we least expect it. And tell us in the comments, do you believe people deserve a second chance? Because what Noah is about to discover will change every life in this little town forever. No one spoke for several minutes. The old grandfather clock echoed through the library. Tick, tick, tick. Noah sat quietly beside Emily, still clutching the warm mug of hot chocolate she had given him. His father, Michael, couldn't stop looking at him, as if he were afraid that blinking might make his son disappear again. Emily finally broke the silence. Noah? He looked up. When you ran away from your aunt's house, why did you come here? The boy reached into the pocket of his oversized hoodie. He slowly pulled out a small, worn bookmark. The edges were faded. The paper was soft from years of being folded and unfolded. Emily took it carefully. The handwriting instantly caught her attention. She recognized it. It belonged to her grandfather. On one side was a tiny drawing of a lighthouse. On the back were just a few words. If you ever feel lost, find the house filled with books. Someone there will always leave the light on for you. Emily stared at the bookmark. Who gave this to you? Noah shrugged. An old man. What old man? He had white hair and a green sweater. He gave me a sandwich at the bus station. He told me not to be afraid, and he said if I ever needed help, I should find the library. Michael looked confused. That's impossible. Emily slowly turned toward him. My grandfather passed away almost 5 years ago. Noah frowned. I don't know. He was real. He smiled at me, and then he walked away. No one knew what to say. The next morning, Emily decided to continue cleaning the oldest part of the building. Noah insisted on helping. He carefully dusted every shelf, straightened every book, and proudly announced, I'm the assistant librarian now. Emily laughed. I think that title comes with unlimited hot chocolate. His eyes lit up. Best job ever. An hour later, Noah disappeared behind one of the tallest bookcases. A few seconds later, they heard him shout, Emily, come look. She hurried over. The bookcase had moved several inches away from the wall. Behind it was a narrow wooden door nobody had noticed before. Michael pushed gently. The hinges groaned. The hidden room slowly revealed itself. Dust floated through beams of sunlight. Old wooden desks filled the space. Children's drawings covered the walls. Paper stars hung from the ceiling. It looked less like a secret room and more like a forgotten sanctuary. In the center stood a round table. Resting on top was a thick green journal. Its leather cover was cracked with age. Yet, strangely, almost no dust had settled on it. Emily carefully opened the first page. Her grandfather's handwriting filled the paper. If you're reading this, The library has found another child who needs hope. People believe libraries exist to protect stories, but stories exist to protect people. Some children need books, some need soup, some need silence, and some simply need one adult who refuses to give up on them. If you found this journal, please continue what I started. Emily quietly turned the pages. Each entry described a different child. A little girl afraid of thunderstorms, a boy who had never celebrated a birthday, a teenager who dreamed of becoming a firefighter. Beside every name was one sentence: need someone who believes in them. Emily couldn't stop reading. Then suddenly, she reached a page covered by a photograph. She carefully lifted it. A little girl smiled into the camera. Long brown hair, bright green eyes, missing front tooth. Underneath, her grandfather had written one name: Olivia. Michael grabbed the journal. His hands shook. No. Emily looked at him. What is it? He could barely speak. That's my daughter. Noah looked up in confusion. I have a sister? Michael nodded slowly. You did. We thought she disappeared years before the fire. Emily continued reading. Olivia never asks for anything for herself. She always asks whether her little brother is safe. She says he's too young to understand how scary the world can be. She makes everyone around her smile. I hope she never loses that gift. Noah wiped his eyes. She remembered me. Emily gently turned the final page. A sealed envelope rested inside. She opened it. If Michael or Noah ever find this journal, please know that Olivia was placed with a loving family after a series of tragic events. They couldn't have children of their own. They promised to give her a beautiful life. If fate ever brings you together again, don't ask her to choose between families. Simply let her know she was loved every single day. William Carter. No one spoke. The library seemed impossibly quiet. Outside, the wind softly moved the branches of the old pine trees. Emily closed the journal. Michael stared through the window, and Noah whispered something almost too quiet to hear. I hope she's happy. If this story has touched your heart so far, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. And tell us in the comments, if you discovered you had a sibling somewhere in the world, would you try to find them? Because the very next visitor who walks through the library doors is about to change everything. 3 weeks passed. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Every morning, Emily unlocked the library doors at exactly 9 o'clock. And every morning, Noah was already waiting on the front steps, sometimes holding a broom, sometimes carrying a stack of donated books, sometimes simply sitting there with a hot chocolate, watching the sunrise. Little by little, the frightened boy who had once apologized for existing was beginning to smile. Children started returning to the old library. First 1, then 3, then 10. Parents donated books. Local teachers volunteered to read stories on weekends. An elderly carpenter repaired broken shelves for free. Someone planted flowers outside. Someone else built colorful benches. The forgotten building was coming back to life. So were the people inside it. One Saturday afternoon, a white SUV stopped outside. A young woman stepped out, maybe 25 years old. She stood perfectly still, staring at the old brick building. In her hands, she held a worn children's book tied with a blue ribbon. Emily walked toward her. "Can I help you?" The woman smiled nervously. "I hope so." She looked at the sign above the entrance. "My parents always told me that one day I should come here." Emily frowned.
They said someone inside would explain why this place always felt like home. She gently placed the book on the front desk. Emily immediately recognized it. It was an old edition of The Secret Garden. Inside the cover was a handwritten message. "For my little Olivia, never stop believing in miracles." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She slowly looked up. "What did you say your name was?" The young woman hesitated. "Olivia." At that exact moment, Noah walked out of the reading room carrying a stack of books. He looked toward the front desk. Their eyes met. For some reason, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. It felt strangely familiar, like remembering a dream you had forgotten years ago. Olivia noticed something first. A tiny birthmark just above Noah's right eyebrow. Her eyes widened. Without thinking, she reached into her purse and pulled out an old photograph. 2 small children sitting on a picnic blanket. A little girl hugging a baby boy. The baby had the same tiny birthmark. Olivia's hands began to shake. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Michael stepped into the room. The moment he saw Olivia, every color disappeared from his face. The old photograph slipped from his hand. He whispered one word. "Olivia?" The young woman slowly turned toward him. "I know that name. My adoptive parents told me it was the only thing they knew about my past." Michael couldn't stop staring at her. "I've looked for you for 15 years. Silence. Then tears. Real tears. The kind that come from carrying hope for far too long. Olivia took one uncertain step forward. "So, you're my father?" Michael nodded, unable to speak. Noah looked from one face to another, then quietly asked, "Does that mean?" Olivia smiled through tears. "I'm your big sister." For a second, the world seemed to stop. Then Noah ran across the room. Olivia dropped to her knees. The little boy wrapped his arms around her as tightly as he could. "I thought I didn't have anyone." Olivia held him even tighter. "You always did." Around them, every person in the library stood in complete silence. Even the children instinctively stopped talking. Some moments are simply too important for words. Later that afternoon, everyone gathered around the large wooden table. Olivia shared her story. "My parents never hid the truth from me. They told me I was adopted. They told me someone once saved my life. They gave me this book on my 18th birthday." She gently touched the worn cover. "My mom said, 'When you're ready, follow the story back to where it began.'" Emily smiled. "My grandfather." Olivia nodded. "I think he gave me more than a second chance." Before we continue, if stories about hope, family, and second chances inspire you,
take a moment to subscribe. Every week, we share heartfelt stories that remind us kindness can change a life forever. And if this reunion made you smile, leave a like and tell us in the comments, do you believe some people are destined to find each other again, no matter how many years pass? Because although Olivia has finally found her family, someone else is already driving toward the library. And that visitor is about to put everything they built in danger. The reunion between Michael, Noah, and Olivia became the talk of the entire town. Neighbors brought homemade pies, teachers donated books. Even people who had never stepped inside the old library began stopping by. Every afternoon, the reading room was filled with children laughing, drawing, and listening to stories. For the first time in years, the building felt alive. Emily stood by the front window, smiling as Noah helped a little girl sound out the words in her first picture book. Just a month ago, he barely spoke. Now he was encouraging another child not to give up. She couldn't have been prouder. Then she noticed a luxury sedan pulling into the parking lot. The engine shut off. A man in an expensive suit stepped outside. Perfect haircut, perfect shoes, perfect smile. But there was something cold in his eyes. He walked straight to the front desk. "Are you Emily Carter?" "I am." He placed a business card on the counter. "Jonathan Hayes, Hayes Development Group. I'd like to discuss purchasing this property." Emily looked around the room. Children sat on colorful rugs reading books. Parents chatted over coffee. An elderly volunteer was teaching chess near the fireplace. "I'm sorry," Emily replied. "The library isn't for sale." Jonathan smiled politely. "I think you'll change your mind." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were architectural drawings, glass walls, luxury apartments, private offices, underground parking. The library was gone, replaced by a modern commercial building. "This project will bring millions into the community." Emily quietly closed the folder. "And where will the children go?" Jonathan didn't answer. Instead, he stood up. "I'll give you a week." Then he walked away. That evening, no one spoke much. Michael stared at the fireplace. Olivia organized children's books just to keep her hands busy. Noah finally broke the silence. "Can they really take our library?" Emily looked toward the old wooden shelves. Every book seemed to hold a memory. Every chair had a story. She smiled softly. Not without a fight. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A little girl named Lily arrived, carrying a shoebox. Emily knelt beside her. "What's inside?" "My savings." Lily carefully opened the lid. Coins, dollar bills, a few birthday cards with $5 notes still tucked inside. "I was saving for a bicycle." She looked around the library. "But I'd rather save this place." Emily felt tears fill her eyes. "You don't have to do that." Lily shook her head. "Books helped me stop being scared after my parents got divorced. I want other kids to have that too." One by one, other children began arriving. A boy brought his piggy bank. Another donated his baseball card collection. 2 sisters sold homemade lemonade outside the library. An old veteran quietly slipped an envelope under the door. Inside was a handwritten note. "This library gave me somewhere to go when I came home from war. Please, keep it alive." Soon, the table near the entrance overflowed with small donations. $5, $10, 25 cents. Each gift carried far more value than the amount written on it. The story spread online. People shared photos of Noah reading to younger children, of Olivia painting colorful murals, of Emily sitting on the floor surrounded by kids listening to fairy tales. Within days, thousands of comments appeared. "Every town deserves a place like this. Don't let them destroy it. Libraries build communities." If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to subscribe and leave a like. It helps us create more stories about hope, kindness, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And tell us in the comments, what's one place from your childhood that you'll never forget? 3 days later, Jonathan Hayes returned. This time, he wasn't alone. Several lawyers stepped out of the sedan, carrying thick folders. Jonathan confidently walked inside. "I've reviewed the property records. I'm afraid this building belongs to the city." Emily calmly reached beneath the front desk. She pulled out an old metal box. Inside was a faded envelope sealed decades earlier. She handed it to Michael. He carefully unfolded the documents. His expression slowly changed. Confusion, surprise, then disbelief. He looked at Emily. "You need to read this." Emily took the papers. At the top was the signature of her grandfather. Below it was a clause that no one had noticed for nearly 30 years. "The library shall forever remain a community home for children and families. Ownership automatically transfers to the first person who restores and operates it for public benefit." Silence filled the room. Jonathan's confident smile disappeared. Michael looked at Emily, then quietly said, "According to this document, you already own the library." No one noticed the elderly woman standing quietly near the doorway. She smiled as tears filled her eyes, because she had known Emily's grandfather, and she was carrying one final letter. A letter that would reveal why he believed, all those years ago, that one ordinary librarian would someday change hundreds of lives. The elderly woman waited until everyone else had left. The library was quiet again. Outside, the setting sun painted the windows in shades of gold. Emily was returning books to the shelves when she heard a gentle voice. "You're William Carter's granddaughter, aren't you?" Emily turned. "Yes?" The woman smiled. "I've been looking for you for a very long time." She placed a small wooden box on the table. It was old. The corners were worn smooth. The brass lock had turned green with age. Emily slowly opened it. Inside rested a single envelope. Across the front, in her grandfather's familiar handwriting, were 6 simple words. "For the day hope finally returns." Emily carefully unfolded the letter. Everyone gathered around. Even Noah stopped sorting books. "My dear Emily, if you're reading this, then the library is alive again. That means children are laughing in these halls. It means someone is making hot chocolate."
These doors, believing they had nowhere else to go. Libraries aren't built from bricks. They're built from kindness. Promise me you'll never forget that. Grandpa. No one spoke. Emily quietly folded the letter. Noah looked around the room. So, this place was never really about books? Emily smiled. It was always about people. Word spread quickly that the library would remain open forever. Families arrived from neighboring towns. Volunteers signed up to help. Local artists painted colorful murals. Teenagers organized reading nights for younger children. Retired teachers offered free tutoring. The little library slowly became something much bigger. It became the heart of the community. One afternoon, Emily noticed Noah sitting alone under the old oak tree. He was writing carefully inside a notebook. "What are you working on?" He quickly closed it. "Nothing." Emily laughed. "It doesn't look like nothing." After a moment, he handed it to her. The first page read, "The boy who found a family in a library." Emily looked at him. "You're writing a book?" Noah nodded. "I want kids to know they're not alone." Emily felt tears filling her eyes. Her grandfather had inspired her. Now she was inspiring Noah. Kindness was moving from one generation to the next. Months passed. Winter became spring. The small garden beside the library bloomed with flowers planted by children. The old building that once seemed forgotten now welcomed hundreds of visitors every week. A new sign hung above the entrance. "Everyone is welcome here. No membership required. No money required. Only curiosity." One rainy afternoon, a television crew arrived. The reporter looked around in amazement. People across the country have heard about this place. What makes it so special? Emily looked at the children reading together. At Michael repairing a broken chair. At Olivia helping a little girl choose her first novel. At Noah reading aloud to kids half his age. Then she answered. We stopped asking who deserved kindness and simply started giving it. The interview aired nationwide. Millions watched. Letters began arriving from every state. Some contained donations. Others contained stories. Stories from people who had once felt forgotten. Stories from parents, teachers, grandparents, children. Every envelope ended with the same message. Thank you for reminding us that good people still exist. 1 year later, the town held its annual Community Day festival. Hundreds gathered on the library lawn. Music played. Children chased bubbles across the grass. Food trucks lined the street. Emily stood near the entrance when the mayor stepped onto the stage. I have an announcement. The crowd became quiet. The old Maple Street Library is officially being renamed. Emily looked confused. The mayor smiled. A place like this deserves a name that reflects what it truly became. 2 children pulled away a large blue cloth. Underneath appeared a brand new wooden sign. William Carter House of Stories. Applause echoed through the entire square. Emily covered her mouth. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder.
Olivia smiled through tears. Noah looked at the sign and whispered, "He'd like that." As the celebration came to an end, Emily noticed a little boy standing alone near the gate. He looked nervous. He held a backpack that seemed almost too heavy for him. She walked over and smiled. "Hi." The boy looked down. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come in." Emily recognized those words immediately. Years earlier, Noah had said the very same thing. She knelt beside him. "You don't have to apologize." The little boy hesitated, then quietly asked, "Can I stay for a while?" Emily smiled. "As long as you want." The child stepped inside. The doors closed gently behind him, and somewhere above the entrance, the old wind chime began to ring, as if William Carter himself were welcoming one more lost soul home. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what act of kindness has changed your life forever? Because sometimes the smallest story becomes the beginning of someone's greatest miracle.